The once highly successful Ford Focus is dying. It is expected to be taken out of production in 2025, and the car behind me is the last Focus. In this video, I'm going to explain to you why the Focus, which was a hugely successful vehicle in the early 2000s, is no longer popular, and why Ford is abandoning this model, and it may even be abandoning the nameplate altogether, because the model is expected to be replaced by a fully electric hatchback that will arrive by the middle of the decade. The car you see behind me has the most powerful engine fitted to a non-ST Focus, and it's a 1-liter. And it also features a new and interesting automatic gearbox that was added with the 2022 facelift. So let's check it out. So the Focus was a hugely successful vehicle. It was introduced in 1998, and by 1999, sales had almost reached the 500,000 per year mark. This example is the 4th generation with the facelift, with the 2022 facelift that changed its front fascia, making it a bit sharper and nicer looking. The car also gets new headlights, new full LED headlights as standard, and a subtly restyled bumper that is quite sporty, even though this isn't an ST line model. My tester rides on optional 17-inch wheels. The standard wheels are 16s. I think you can go all the way up to 18s. This car is in the Titanium X trim level, and it's got a really cool looking blue color. I'll put its name up on screen because I forgot it. Visually speaking, I think the latest Focus is also the best looking. I like how the front section looks very sporty, and it has some very nice creases. I like this crease. I also like this crease, and I like this crease. It's all very nice, and it's got a bit of a Coke bottle shape thing going on, even though it's only a hatchback. Because as you can see, this, you can't really see, but the front part does flare out ever so slightly. And the doors do have quite a bit of shape to them, so they are quite muscular looking. And if you look at the rear end of the vehicle, you can really see how this widens towards the rear, making the vehicle look nice and sporty. And these 17-inch wheels don't look small, and they have quite a lot of tire sidewall. Let me see what the size is. So they are Continental Eco Contact 6 tires, which explains the slight lack of grip that I experienced around a few of these bends around here. But there you go. And the size is 215/50 17s with the extra load. I'm not sure why that is, because this is quite a light vehicle. Moving to the back real quick before this rain doesn't completely drench me. I think the rear end is quite sexy. Let me turn on the rear lights, which are new for this model. But I think you can get fancier looking ones that are full LEDs. These, even though they are almost full LEDs, they still have incandescent bulbs for the turn signals. I really like the look of the rear end. And even though this isn't the ST line model, it still has a sporty rear bumper with a nice real exhaust poking through. I also like the Focus script here. I think it's pretty good. This tells you what the engine is, although it's a bit of a lie, because it's not actually a hybrid, it's just a mild hybrid. It also has quite a high definition reversing camera. Let's open this up. The trunk has a 395-liter capacity, carrying capacity, and it's reasonably practical. It has, well, you can get it with a space saver spare, but this one has an optional subwoofer here. But it's nice that you can still get an actual spare in a car in 2023. You've got a light there, and some tie-down points here, there, as well as there and there. You get 2 grab handles to pull down the hatch, which is quite easy. I think it's a great looking car. I love the proportions. I love the sporty looks. And this car does a really good job of hiding its quite long 2.7 meter wheelbase, which translates into a lot of rear legroom, as I shall now demonstrate. In fact, I'm going to sit behind myself. I am 183 centimeters tall, and as I open the door, you will see this little plastic thing. It's actually kind of rubberized actually. As you can see, it pops out to protect the edge of the door. It's an optional feature. It costs like, I think, under 200 euros. But boy, is it worth it. And it is very courteous of you to specify this feature. because you won't give either your or other people's cars the dings in the parking lot, so that's good. It's also on the front doors. Pretty neat feature. It does make a bit of a sound. Sounds like something's loose inside the door if you don't know that it actually has this feature. But anyway, let's climb aboard. So the seat is set in my comfortable driving position, which is quite far back. But as I step in, sorry for the lack of light, this is kind of a dreary day, I have good levels of knee room. I can slide my feet underneath the front seat, no problem. The cushion is reasonably long, and it gives you enough under thigh support, which is something I always criticize in many cars, but here it's fine. As for headroom, well, I fit. You would probably get even more headroom if you didn't go for the panoramic roof, which is the most expensive single option on this car. But it's a nice feature. I would have it. It makes the cabin airier and just a more pleasant place to sit on longer journeys. If I close the door, you will see the tweeter from the B&O optional sound system. It looks like the plastic cover here is coming off. Do you twist it on? It kind of moves. Not the highest quality feeling thing, I will give you that. Nor is the plastic on top of the doors high quality. It's of the scratchy variety. I'll have to open the door again to get in more light, but you do get door pockets even in the rear, which are lined in felt, and you can put a reasonably big bottle in there. This is a half-liter bottle, and it wobbles around, so you can put maybe like a 1.5 liter bottle in there. That's pretty good. You also get a armrest with cup holders. They are quite deep and they would hold this bottle in place very well. Someone's hat. You also get one USB-C and one USB-A for charging in the back. The back of this console is bare plastic. I'm gonna move to the front now. The first thing you notice when you climb aboard this Focus in the front are the seats, which are, I would say, reasonably sporty. Again, this isn't an ST line model, and you even get side supports here, which they aren't the deepest, but they're there. And you also get them for the backrest, which is pretty good. You can adjust the angle of the headrest, so even if you slouch, you can get the headrest to touch the back of your head and make you feel extra comfy if you're into that kind of thing. And it's also very soft, as are the seats. For the driver, you also get an adjustable thigh support, which I find really lovely. The materials on the doors are better up front. This is soft. This is also soft and leather-like. It's obviously not leather. The same door pockets lined in felt, which is pretty good. And these go all the way back a long way, so you can probably slide a really big bottle in there. The steering wheel is quite sporty, I would say, even though this isn't the ST line model. And what's nice about it is that it's soft. I did notice that the stitching isn't especially good, because here you can see that the edge of the material, the leather material, is visible. So it was not included in the stitch. You even get some leather cladding so that when you rest your knee on longer journeys here, you feel a bit of comfort. It's not excessively padded, but it's okay. It's reasonably solid too, although this part does move a little bit. My tester gets Sync 4. That's displayed on a huge 13.2-inch screen, which is really, really big, and it dominates the experience of being aboard this vehicle. It works fine. It's a good infotainment system. With Sync 4, you no longer get physical climate controls here. All you get is the start-stop button, which thankfully has been relocated from this spot, which was ridiculous. Very, very bad button placement for the start-stop button in the pre-facelift Focus. And then you get a button for the automatic parking function to activate and deactivate start-stop. This is the maximum defogging, and this is where you choose the driving mode. So when you press this, you would think, let me show you, that it cycles through the modes, but it doesn't. It just brings up the menu, so you have to press this, and then you have to press the button on the screen, which isn't an ideal solution. And you would have to press it again for this to disappear. I drove around with this on the screen for like 20 minutes before I realized that I just have to press the button to get the map or whatever it is that I was looking to have on screen back. The digital driver's display, which is optional as well in this car, is pretty good. It's got some of the best graphics I've ever seen, to be honest. They are up there with what I've seen in premium cars, so good job, Ford. In fact, even the screen's size is exactly the same as you would find in a BMW. It's 12.3 inches, so maybe it's actually the same unit. This is the light switch. Typical. Nothing to write home about. I like that Ford put the lane keep assist button here, so if you press it, you can enable and disable it on the fly, which is really good. You get buttons on the steering wheel. These I don't think are new. They are the same as in older Foci, which is apparently the correct plural for Focus. Oh yeah, the climate menu. All of it is now in a bar in the lower part of the screen, which is a pretty good solution. You can turn on your heated seats, heated steering wheel. It also has a common Ford feature, which is a heated front windscreen. You can choose what you can have displayed in this separate window here on the right of the screen. That's Sync 4 for you. It's pretty good. It also has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, both of which work wirelessly. I'm not a huge fan of this really old school looking shifter. I mean, it works, but it feels like it's from 1999. Okay, I'm being harsh. It's from 2005. So in order to put it into D, you have to press on this and then pull it back 3 times. Because if you pull it back a 4th time, you move into L mode, which Ford recommends that you use when you need the car to hold on to gears longer. I know that some Focus models used to have like a rotary control for the transmission, but I'm assuming that with the new transmission that Ford added with the facelift, maybe that's not a viable solution and they had to resort to this. There you have a optional wireless charging pad, and you have 2 data connections, USB-C and USB-A, as well as a 12 volt here. Between the seats, you get some mood lighting, believe it or not, inside the cup holder thing, which is adjustable and you can change. I guess it works all right. I can't say I'm a huge fan of it, but it does have its merits. I would have liked this to be just a little bit deeper. The one in the back, for instance, is deeper. And you can cover this with a Volvo style cover. I think Volvo invented this style of sliding cover, and it's so good that the industry just copied it. The armrest itself is reasonably soft and plush feeling. You get a tray here with an arrow to tell you where the front is, although you can, if you want to, put it in the other way. And the space inside isn't anything to write home about, but it's okay. In between the seats, you also get an electric parking brake, as well as a button to enable auto hold. What else am I missing? Oh yeah, let's get rained on a little bit. This sunroof, oh my god, it's so rainy. This sunroof opens and it's very nice. You can even drive the car at speed with it open, and it doesn't create a lot of buffeting, so good job Ford on that as well. I think it's finally time to take this car out for a drive, and I'll tell you more about its engine, its transmission, and the traditional Ford Focus party piece, which is the amazing handling. Probably the biggest change that Ford made with the facelift, aside from all the cosmetic stuff and the simplification of the engine range, which we'll get to in a second, has to be the addition of an actual dual-clutch transmission, of the kind you get in BMW's front-wheel drive vehicles and Mini, and also front-wheel drive biased Mercedes models as well. It shifts really well. And it's surprisingly smooth. I mean, you wouldn't really know it's a double-clutch transmission if you didn't know. I mean, you wouldn't notice much difference compared to Ford's previous 8-speed torque converter automatic that this replaces. What this car is really missing is a set of paddle shifters. And the stick itself, I would have been happy if you could slot it into a position where you can change gears manually with it, but no, I would have liked something with more functionality. I remember that when Ford announced the facelift, it said that if you buy a Focus with the PowerShift dual-clutch transmission, it would come with paddles as standard. But at least in my experience, that's not the case. And I'm not really sure why, because this vehicle is very well equipped, as we'll get to later on in the video. So I think that's a huge omission that for me really affects the way I perceive the car. I mean, whenever I get aboard a Focus, I always want to drive it a bit briskly. And this, for me, just dulls everything down a little bit. Even though, as I said, the transmission itself shifts fine, it gives you kick down reasonably well, and then the engine really pulls nicely. You can put it in L mode, and it seems a bit more responsive. But if you leave it in L mode and in sport mode for the powertrain, it will feel a bit jerky at lower speeds. And when you just want a little bit of throttle, it might give you more and it will move you around in the car. So that's not ideal. I mean, the throttle mapping gets really sensitive with this combination of engine and gearbox settings. The engine isn't new. It's the same 1-liter 3-cylinder turbo that Ford has offered for over a decade now. In this application, it makes 155 horsepower and up to 240 Newton meters, thanks to the addition of an integrated starter generator, which turns it into a mild hybrid. It's supposed to hit 100 kilometers per hour from standstill in 8.4 seconds, and it's actually quicker with the 7-speed dual clutch than it is with the 6-speed manual. The manual reaches 100 kilometers per hour in 9 seconds, this does it in 8.4, although the manual is a bit quicker at the top end, with a top speed of 211 kilometers per hour versus the automatic's 208. So let's see how it launches. I haven't disabled any systems, just foot hard on the brake, foot hard on the gas, and let go. Struggling a bit for grip, but it really pulls. That's 100. Definitely feels like an 8-ish second car to 100 kilometers per hour. If you don't keep it in L mode and the car then chooses a lower gear, you might struggle a bit. So initial pickup when you're at lower revs isn't especially good. I would have liked to be able to test this by forcing it to hold the gear, so I would have liked the paddles again. But it just feels that like there's some dead spots where the car has lag. This in spite of the fact that peak torque is supposed to be delivered flat between 2100 and 5500 RPM, and that might be so, but sometimes you really don't feel it. Peak power is delivered at 6000 RPM, and you really appreciate how smoothly this engine pulls. It's also reasonably refined, especially for a 3-cylinder. Sometimes when you do start it up and it's cold, you do feel a bit of vibration make its way into the cabin, but drive it for a couple of minutes and it's gone. I only noticed this when I started the vehicle this morning when it was a bit cold and I didn't drive it for I think like 12 hours or something. In this configuration, the vehicle weighs just over 1.3 tons, which means it's quite a light car, and you really feel this. It's really adjustable with the steering and brakes, and you feel like you're always in control. I am not a fan of the tires. I think they are a bit too focused on giving you good fuel economy. I would have liked a sportier set of Continentals for this, or any tires really, as these just tend to wash wide a bit too quickly, especially in conditions like today. I mean, this force-fed 1-liter has no problem overpowering them in these conditions. The steering is exceptional in this though. I think it's still the best in class, as it's always been. A famous Ford Focus feature used to be its control blade independent rear suspension. For the latest generation, you only got independent suspension in the versions with larger engines. But nowadays, post facelift, which cut a number of engines from the lineup, I think it's only available in the ST. But frankly, for a torsion beam setup, this is actually pretty good. It's one of the better that I've tried. I did catch it out when I went over some tram tracks at an angle, and it just seemed to unsettle the rear end ever so slightly. But other than that, you won't know it's not an independent setup, and it doesn't really negatively affect the handling from what I can tell in these conditions and in this configuration of car with these tires. Okay, let's see these more difficult corners. Brakes are good. Interestingly, the Focus has the same size brake discs, both up front and in the rear. I think they're 287s. Models lower down in the range, I'm pretty sure, get drum brakes for the rear, but this 155 horsepower version gets discs all around. Another thing I appreciate about this car is that when you chuck it into a bend, you really have to be at the limit of grip or having exceeded it before the traction and stability nannies come on. And I remember attending this car's national launch a good few years ago, 5-6 years ago, and I actually got to drive it, so the pre-facelift version of this, around the track. It was the 1.5 liter with 180 horsepower and a manual gearbox, and I remember giving it my best to unsettle the vehicle, and it just wouldn't budge. It was glued to the tarmac. I was really impressed. In the facelifted model, given the more limited range of engines available, it is harder to explore the Focus's handling limits, which are accessible and fun to explore, I might add. Which is why, even though I like the 7-speed, I'd still recommend you just get this with a manual. It's not the best feeling manual, but it's precise enough, and it's more fun, and it's more suitable for this car, or at least that's what I want to see in it. It does wash wide a little bit, but it does it very predictably, and it's fun. This car feels light on its feet in a way that none of its rivals can match. Even the Peugeot 308, the latest one, which is lighter by a few dozen kilos if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't feel anywhere near this agile. All in all, I'm really sad that the Focus is going away and it's being replaced by an EV. I do have high hopes for said EV because I'm sure Ford will want to retain some of the characteristics that used to define its cars in the early to mid 2000s. Very high on the list was fun handling with sharp and precise steering. Sadly, I would add, Ford is now focusing on crossovers, which I don't like. I'm not a fan of crossovers, as you've probably heard on this channel, if this isn't the first of my videos that you've seen. For instance, it announced a new Explorer that is actually based on the Volkswagen MEB platform for some reason. I'm not sure why Ford chose to go down that route. I mean, it's not a good look for an automaker that's as big and has as long a history as Ford. In terms of pricing, the Focus really shows how expensive cars have gotten. It starts from around 23,000 euros, and for that you get the same engine as you do in this, only in a lower state of tune, with 125 horsepower. There's also a pair of 1.5 liter diesels that you can opt for with either 95 or 120 horsepower, and at the top of the range sits the 2.3 liter ST with 280 horsepower, which would obviously be my Focus pick. My Titanium X tester with Sync 4, the sunroof, the automatic gearbox, the digital gauge cluster, heated steering wheel, heated seats, and a few other options that it has, is around 32,000 euros, all in, VAT included, in Romania. For me, it feels like Ford has really given up on the Focus in its current form, at least. It would much rather steer you towards Kuga or the Puma, which is built in Romania, by the way, the second one. So buy that and help the Romanian economy. Thank you. And even the engine that powers this is also assembled in Romania, which is nice, even though it's built in Germany. the car, I mean the Focus. The Kuga is just a tall version of this, which is heavier, less efficient, less fun to drive, and ever so slightly more practical, but the trade-off for me would never be worth it. I mean, I've been hooning this car around for a couple of days, and I've been averaging just over 8 liters per 100 kilometers. In fact, let me check. So it's 8.4 liters per 100 kilometers. I have been driving it out of town a little bit, but not that much. I would say it's a 50-50 mix of driving conditions. But that's a really good number, and if you drive it constantly at 100 kilometers per hour, it's gonna use up maybe like 6-ish liters per 100 kilometers, which is pretty good. It's not quite as efficient as you would expect given its small displacement, but it's a good unit, definitely a peppy unit. I remember that before Ford decided to stop selling the Mondeo, there were plans to put this engine in a Mondeo, and I was very skeptical at the time. But now I'm not. I think it could handle it. So my conclusion is, buy a Focus while you still can, because it's a great all-rounder. It is for good reason that this nameplate was as successful as it was selling millions upon millions of vehicles. But in 2021, sales of the Focus did drop to below 100,000 units per year. So that does indicate a drop in popularity. And it also shows that car buyers have no idea about cars. I mean, they always try to find justifications for buying a crossover, which they didn't ever need when the car they should have bought was a Focus or a Golf or an i30 or something of the sort. Anyway, I don't want to rant on about this. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.